stocks continue to rise and the expectations to continue, they continue to go right along with that, price targets just keep going up. Today, I'm looking at Amazon, 3,600 from a couple of firms, 3,500 from another firm. Apple's price target gets raised almost every day. There's a new street high somewhere. Alphabet gets bumped today at a couple of firms. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think there's overall just some momentum fatigue, to my point earlier about Microsoft, where I feel as though the numbers were strong, very strong. And, the only blemish might have been on the record, which was the shortfall. Well, really the no forward guidance that was expressed. So I do think there's a little bit of fatigue out there. We saw a little bit of a drawdown next week, but I think eventually all these things will continue to move higher.
Kevin, if it's Amazon or Apple or one of these other big names, which one do you think would bring the market down if it disappointed? Right? Joe said the market can withstand one of these names disappointing. Do you agree with that?
I do, but I don't anticipate any disappointment on these engines. Including Facebook, which I think is part of this index in tech, even though it's getting bashed from every angle. It's totally irrelevant to the investment thesis. Small business in America runs on Facebook. I look at my tear sheets each week. 80% of our advertising dollars are now on Facebook or Insta. And so we don't care if a burger company doesn't want to advertise on it. It's irrelevant. That's 10% of their book. And if they want eyeballs, they're going to have to go back. So my point is, if I see any slowdown there, that would tell me that there's exhaustion coming in small business that's pivoting to the digital side of things, which I see none of. I mean, basically, there's the haves and the have-nots. I can now tell you that 20%.
Maybe I should have used a different word. Maybe disappointment's not the right word to use, given the fact that Microsoft didn't disappoint and the stock still went down. But where expectations are, what happens if the earnings just don't meet the expectations? We don't have to say that they'll disappoint. They could still beat the numbers. They could still beat the numbers handily. The outlooks could be decent. But what if they're not good enough, Kevin, given how the stocks have run? The market's not going to just brush that off.
No, look, it's always sell on news phenomenon. We've been living with that for decades. But when you think of the incremental dollar, Judge, I have to put money to work today. I have to put money to work tomorrow. I have a lot of cash sitting around because I've been exiting other sectors. Where do I put it? I'm putting it back into Microsoft, putting it back into Facebook. Why? That's what's working. Not just for the momentum, if you want to invest on that basis. I don't. That's where money is being spent in this digital pivot. I can now say I've got enough focus now after all these months, 20% of my small private portfolio is going to fail. It's going to fail. They're going to zero. They are in restaurants. They are in sports entertainment. They're anything doing movie theaters, all that stuff, gyms, going to zero. I don't want to support them anymore, and I don't think the government should either. Let those guys die. They have to die because the consumer is moving into a different direction. But where the consumer is going is being empowered by the Facebooks, by the Microsofts, by all of these tech companies. Amazon, are you kidding? That's a must-have for any small business, 40% of their sales. So that trend remains intact. What's different from what we saw in March is I now know who the losers are, and the market does too.